I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zies Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome to Arcane Mark.
Welcome to Arcane Mark. On today's show, we are going to be building a hazard. Together.
With Twitch.
Yes, with Twitch chat, which includes Garland, who has been having a campaign to have this hazard built for weeks. And now it's really happening. So
it's happening.
We are starting with, as always, when we build most of the things that we build on this show, with a concept. So to get all of the things that we do during chat today, it's kind of like one of those shows like Iron Chef or a cooking show where we'll take the ingredients that are mystery ingredients offered by chat, we'll vote on them, and then we will build whatever comes out of that. And to start us off, we need a concept. If we don't know what the hazard is, how are we going to be starting from something like, let's start with the damage? It's like, what? Why would we do that?
So, but it is useful to think about, there's a few different toggles that are broad categories that hazards have that could help inspire what kinds of things you might think of. You can have hazards that are traps, that are kind of like a manufactured object that is going to attack your PCs. You can have environmental hazards that are natural in some form, whether they are made of inorganic or organic material. You can also have haunts. And you can also have hazards that are sort of simple, one and done, like, oh, you hit the tripwire, or you can have hazards that continue to do things over time until the PC snowball out of control until the PC stops.
So it's possible that your concept won't define whether it's simple or complex at first, and we'll tease that out later, but it's probably true that your concept will make it clear whether it's a trap, an environmental hazard, or a haunt. So just type in chat any concept you have for a hazard, other than maybe I would like to do a basic pit trap or something that obviously already exists. We don't need to build a basic pit trap.
Another thing to say about hazards versus creatures is if it's something that is making decisions and changing its mind round over round, that's a creature, not a
hazard. Are going to do a routine because they're a hazard. They just kind of function on their own until you stop them. Whereas, yeah, if it's making decisions, it has multiple choices for abilities. That is a creature.
So I see there's some interest in chat for a haunt in general.
Okay, so if you want a haunt, just throw any concepts at all for a haunt. It doesn't have to be super. In fact, it probably shouldn't be super nitty gritty and explain everything that happens. It could be a haunt for someone who was betrayed by the person they trusted most, or a haunt for someone who asphyxiated, or a haunt for someone who was eaten by rats. You can come up with almost any. It can be about how they died. It can be about where it's located. It's a haunted hallway that distorts how long it seems to be. Any kind of concept for the haunt, or it doesn't have to be a haunt. If you put it into the chat, we will vote and pick which one.
One of those stereotypical haunted dolls that does something really creepy.
A creepy haunted doll. There's been haunted weapons that make you try to kill yourself with the weapon. There are so many different possibilities. I remember that Linda wrote dozens and dozens of haunts in PF1 in Horror Adventures. And then she wrote a bunch of haunts in PF2 in Game Mastery Guide. So, all right, Rex Fearless, the 69th, has said the hazards I need the most are things I can use during a hexploration. So, many times you would probably be more likely to have a haunt or an environmental hazard during an exploration than a trap, because the trap being manufactured out of an entire hex, running into that is finding a needle in a haystack, unless it was in the hex you find a small dungeon, and in the dungeon you find the trap. But then you've kind of brought it out of hex.
So both of these ideas that I see so far could be used as something that you found in the process of exploration, which are a family betrayed and murdered by a traveler they took in, and haunted weapon or armament.
All right. Yes. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in. So that's family betrayed by a traveler they took in. haunt.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 2 is haunted armament. The Absalom initiation haunt, Kojo.
Indeed.
That one's a nasty one.
It's a dangerous one for sure.
I remember that. It was during one of the few times that, like, I did a mechanical pass on things. I was like, that haunt is too nasty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to decrease the damage from what was on there and turn some of it into persistent damage. And I think it was still
pretty nasty, yeah.
Pretty nasty even at that point.
Well, especially because, like, there's just something about hazards when you're, like, level 1 and level 2.
Well, because if you crit fail, it can just kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
It could just kill you if it all does pure damage. And I was trying to make it that somewhat less likely.
Mm-hmm. And after that response, we definitely move more into, like, make sure the more of its conditions. And
I would have gone more extreme. I just felt like since, like, the developers weren't even there, I was doing a pass afterwards. I was like, how much does the design lead do without consultation with someone? And I decided that the most I could do was slightly decrease the damage and put in some conditions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have 2 ideas: family betrayed by a traveler that they took in haunt, and a haunted armament.
So I think we should give a little more time to see if we get a third idea, and if not, I'd be happy to work on either of these.
Yes. Also, I could theoretically just say like a hexploration trap as a like as another one for Rex Phyllis. So we could just say like hexploration like recon hazard.
Yeah, so
I'll
that
just
would be
put
like
that in there. That's the concept.
Then that's sort of like a concept of something that's probably going to be like an outdoor environmental
because
hazard.
You could easily find in a hexploration that home of the family betrayed by a traveler they took in. In fact, that's probably something you would find in exploration the same way the traveler who killed them did.
Yes.
And you could maybe find a haunted armament, but their high concept isn't that it's a hexploration recon.
Right. Okay, sounds good.
Vote, please, in chat. Just type a 1, a 2, or a 3.
And we shall figure out
depending on whether you want to deal with the family betrayed by a traveler they took in, the haunted armament, or the hexploration recon hazard. Vote for 1, a 2, or a 3 for the high concept we're going to focus on. So we have a 1, and we have a 3. And a 1, and Rico is forgot and it's too late to populate the voting list with weird nonsense ideas. That's too bad, Rico. On X, somebody was saying that they wanted to do things for their Kingmaker game, and I said, well, at least 5% of all workshops are just something that Rico populated into the voting list. Rico the Bold populated to the voting list for his Dragons vs. Leshy's Kingmaker game.
Maybe Rico's going to vote for 3 because it's a hexploration hazard. And you can use that
it's a hexploration. If Rico votes for 3 for the hexploration hazard, then that's closest to not going without going over to something
Kojo
that
says Rico's not bold enough.
He did it.
So wait, we're
have
tied
2
now.
for 1 and 2 for
2
3.
threes and 1. Kojo...
So Kojo gets what he really wants because he did pick 1, which is 1 plus 3. So we're doing it.
We're gonna.
It is a hexploration recon hazard that is a haunt from a family that was betrayed when by a traveler that they took in.
So I'm thinking then that maybe this family were themselves nomadic or traveling in some way, rather than like they're in like this one house in the middle of the city or something like that.
Well, it's definitely not from a city, but it could be that it's
like
a farmhouse.
Yeah,
a small farmhouse that's by itself.
Yes.
Or one of those like solitary inns or like small places that like it's the only place on the road where you could stay. Like it's like this creepy haunted like tiny little inn or like a farmhouse.
Maybe because it's like that they took it. A family that they took in makes me think it's less of like an inn and a business and more like that they were seeking shelter from.
Right.
They played it off to imagine that they were seeking shelter from the monsters and other dangers outside.
That's right. So I think that if it was a like a family farmhouse or a small like it could be a someone who's nomadic, but that in that case they might be less likely to have been approached for shelter from the traveler. Yes,
that's right. So why don't we go with the farmhouse? And then also, like, that... So, I mean, it also makes very much sense how, like, if you walk into their area, they're definitely going to attack you immediately.
If you're travelers on this road,
Yes.
because you're like the one who killed
Then
them.
they want it to be like you were travelers on
And
this
if you're
road.
exploring and you find this abandoned farmhouse, you'll probably look at it.
Yes, and be
So-
like, oh, look, maybe there's treasure or shelter or whatever. Especially if, like, what happens is that there's some, like, terrible weather, and then you're like, well, let's take shelter in this abandoned house, and then...
Okay, so
Nonsense.
haunts can sometimes be a lot more dangerous than the innocent people who died to make the
Yes.
haunt. What level does everyone think this haunt should be? Type any level in chat from -1 to 25.
And now when
Some
I'm
of those
thinking
are
this, too-
outrageously not appropriate
Yes.
for this hazard, but that's okay.
We'll figure it out.
Figure it out based on what you type.
8.
We have an 8 in
Good
here.
standard mid-level. 2.
We've got a 2, and we've got an 8 and a 2.
2.
We've got a
2 is
10.
more of like a, hey, like, this is starting out. Their power's more similar to, like, the actual, you're an early adventurer figuring things out. 10.
8,
Higher.
2,
6.
10, 6. I bet Rico and Rex Fearless both have characters who are at levels 10 and 6.
Yes.
Or somewhere around there. Alright. So, therefore, let's do level 6, because that's roughly the average of these levels, while also being the level that somebody picked.
Sounds good?
So, we're going to make it level 6. Now, is this a simple one and done hazard where just something awful happens? It just happened. Now the PCs have found out that something was bad there. And since it's for exploration, that means it's done, and there's probably nothing else that day, unless there's like a creature encounter that you decide to hook together with this afterwards with an undead.
Like,
or,
for example, there's the haunt, and then there's, like, the undead animals that are in the farm or something
right,
like that.
or maybe the haunt of the betrayed people actually killed the murderous wanderer, and then he became
Oh, yeah.
an undead and now will attack you. But it could be a simple hazard that just gives you clues, or it could be a complex hazard where it's like, this is a whole encounter that is this hazard. So vote in chat, simple or complex. Just type the word simple or complex. Or if you're that's too many letters, just put S or C, and we can figure it out.
There's a huge flood of complex coming in
this
here.
is Arcane Mark Build a Anything
It's a
Workshop.
It's
Nobody
never gonna
ever
be
picks
simple.
simple.
Well,
on
you know, if
that.
we wanted to bring an idea number 2, then we could include...
Oh, look! Rex picks simple.
the idea that people are being stabbed by, like, pitchforks and stuff like that, too.
There you go. So we have a flood of complex. So, well, you know, Rex Phyllis got the level that they were looking for of 6, but we're going to do a complex level 6 hazard. Okay, so this is a complex level 6 haunt. Now, normally, haunts, and so haunts are usually pretty insubstantial. They're pretty hard to damage. For a complex hazard, that can certainly be tricky in that they don't have hit points that you can deal with. So we're going to want to make sure we think carefully about which kind of skills we allow to overcome this hazard, due to the fact that there is always the, well, we can just leave solution to a haunt if it haunts a particular site. But that may be the only solution that the PCs would have against a complex haunt. So
we're going to want something beyond just religion. I mean, we're probably going to want a farming lore type thing in there too among the options.
Yes. Also, it's possible that maybe there is something that you can damage. So this is the haunt of the betrayal of this family to a wanderer who came in and betrayed their trust and just murdered them. So I'm imagining in this scenario that the wanderer, like, if the wanderer was strong enough to just, like, murder hobo, kick in the door, and just cut them into pieces, then it wouldn't even be a betrayal. They just cut them into pieces. So they probably, to betray them, they broke bread with them.
Yes.
And then when everyone went to sleep,
yes,
the murderer woke up or never went to sleep and then just killed everybody.
So are they going to try to instill some kind of sleep-like state in you, like slowing you down and potentially getting you to fall asleep?
I'm thinking that their reaction to enter initiative puts you into kind of a torpor or kind of a lulled state, and then it just starts stabbing you in the back.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
I think that's what.
And then turn after turn, it keeps stabbing you in the back.
Yes, basically yes. So in that case, let's think about this. So
I think that because because it's gonna be a little trickier to disable, and also, but like haunts tend to be harder to see because it's like, well, the force hasn't gathered up yet. Then I can see going for our higher DC for between stealth and disable being stealth, and then disable being a bit easier, because since it's a complex hazard, it's gonna need multiple checks to get rid of.
Correct. Usually especially a simple hazard has something that's extreme that is like what makes this hard. And Linda's saying that the extreme quantity on this should probably be its stealth, because you just don't notice it. In fact, just like the farm family did not notice that the Wanderer was there to kill that family.
Let's go ahead and start typing up what we're building here.
Let's type this into a file. So
yes,
we've got a level 6 complex haunt betrayal at house on the hill.
There you go.
And it is going to have a stealth, and it's not a DC, I guess, it's rolling into initiative.
Yeah.
So stealth plus 18 for initiative.
Mm-hmm. And the disabled DCs generally then
and so the disables will probably be like 25 and 21
for
to 19.
Like, yeah.
So 25 and then 19 to 21. So
yeah.
That is where we're going with that. So then let's look at the defenses. So we don't need armor class because of the fact that like this is a haunt.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of just happening. So usually you can't target that with necessarily like it doesn't have hit points or hardness.
But haunts do often have will saves.
They often do because there could be some way to like affect their mind of the haunt. So let's give them a will save. So their will for level 6, maybe like somewhere in between high and low.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like plus 14?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Somewhere between
other kinds of hazards do not have any kind of save, but haunts sometimes have a will save. So
and then hit points as well.
They don't.
Hit points. If they're not. If
they're a haunt.
Yes, right. Sorry, it's haunts.
It's insubstantial.
So it doesn't need hotness or hit points. All right,
we
have our
defenses.
Any of
that. It doesn't have very many defenses at all.
We're going to need a complex attack.
So the complex attack, because it's a complex hazard. So we start off with the reaction. So the reaction, like Linda was saying, and like the concept demands is like is that you kind of get lulled into
final. Like, it's a final rest or something.
You get lulled into like maybe it's like false sense of security.
Yes.
Reaction.
And then that would be mental. It's a mental effect.
Yeah, it's definitely mental. And it definitely needs a beginning parentheses, not an end parentheses.
That's true.
And so it's definitely a mental effect, and it would do something like all creatures in a 60-foot emanation are lulled into a false sense of security.
And must attempt a DC XX.
Depending on their DC, let's look at offenses.
Offense is...
Okay, so we've got an extreme DC of 27 and a high DC of 24. So I'm thinking that the betrayal is actually really nasty. And that the actual attack is not as bad.
That makes sense. When I'm saying XX, by the way, the reason that I have this as a habit is that, like, at Paizo and some other RPG companies, XX is used as a placeholder for, like, go back and fill this in later. If it's like, oh, here, this ability is described on page XX, and then you fill it back in when you make the book. So I also have the habit of, like, using it as a placeholder anywhere when I'm working on something and don't have it yet. And then you have to say it rolls initiative.
Also, I realized that since technically everything that's in our thing is OGL, we probably can't use Betrayal at House on the Hill. So I'm going to use Betrayal at House on the Prairie. Because it's like the Little House on the Prairie and Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Well, are we doing Orc then? Should we say off guard instead of flat-footed?
Well, I think it just says it's OGL in that channel.
Oh, okay. So, there we go.
I can just say flat-footed / off guard and people will know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so on a success, they're flat-footed or off guard. On a critical success, they're unaffected. On a failure, the creature is flat-footed / off guard. And is, like, let's see, they're drowsy. So they're probably, like, slowed 1 and takes, a -2 status penalty to saves against sleep effects.
Yes.
Not that this haunt is gonna do them, but if you combine it with like a Sandman creature or something like that, it could be effective. And then failure is gonna
critical failure. Yeah.
Critical failure would be as failure except the creature falls asleep for 1 minute.
And then when you're saying they fall asleep for 1 minute, this does not have sort of like the magical rider of the 4th ranked or 4th level sleep where you like can't wake up and other things, which makes sense because its level is lower than that.
Yep. I also added incapacitation because it can put you to sleep.
Yes, that totally makes sense.
That's right.
Now that it can put you to sleep.
It can put you right to sleep.
Ooh, sleepy time.
So, that is just basically what we were discussing before. So then its routine
is how it continues to attack you.
Yeah, its routine.
So what are they attacking you with?
3 actions.
They stab you in the back with like daggers, or is it like sickles or pitchforks or?
So that's gonna be an interesting question. It's the Wanderer stabbed them. So maybe what the Wanderer was carrying, which is probably like some kind of a concealed knife.
Yeah.
So let's see what we've got here. So if we have like the Poison Gallery as an example of the formatting on this. So
the Poison Dark Gallery, yes.
So routine is going to be 3 actions. And let's just say with each action, the betrayal makes a treacherous shiv attack against a flat-footed creature.
Yes.
If any creature is awake, the betrayal attacks that if any creatures are awake, the betrayal attacks those creatures first. Basically, it's not gonna wake up someone yet because it probably killed them one by one.
That's correct.
It's not gonna wake up the creatures that are asleep.
Absolutely.
If that would happen.
So this treacherous...
Or we could just say a flat-footed creature who isn't asleep.
Yes.
Who isn't asleep from a critical failure.
Or just
against,
who isn't... Yeah.
Yeah, from the critical failure.
Well, but also like they should eventually attack them, right?
Yes.
Against a flat-footed creature.
If all creatures are asleep, the betrayal chooses one at random and attacks only that creature.
Yes, there we go.
Turn. So it can attack up to 3 creatures, but it will never attack the same creature 3 times. So now it can't focus fire. Although it will if everybody was asleep.
Yes. So then when you're talking about attacking creatures that are flat-footed, I'm also thinking about like precision damage here because you're talking sneak attack type stuff going on.
It was a betrayal.
Yep.
I think so too. So let's ask chat a little bit about that. Would you prefer? What type of damage would you prefer? I'm gonna put some options here. I'm gonna put physical plus precision. I'm gonna put void / negative plus precision. I'm gonna put
mental could potentially be
on here as well. Yes, I'm gonna put mental plus potentially others, and we'll get into that if that one wins. Gonna put like poison plus potentially others, and we'll get into what the others are if that one wins. And you can vote 1, 2, 3, or 4 depending on which one, which is like the predominant thing: physical, void, mental, poison. Like if it's mental, then it's like you're remembering the trauma of them being stabbed more than actually being stabbed.
Yes.
And so like every time the dagger stabs you, you see flashes of their betrayal.
Yes.
And that's what's harming you, rather than like actual cuts appearing in your body. And whereas with 2, then that would be like the undeath, the haunt is draining your life force away. And 1, physical, is like it's physically manifesting these actual shivs that
are stabbing you. Yes.
And with poison, it's either like the shiv was poisoned, or it's like the poison that's the metaphysical, metaphorical poison.
Yes.
And
that would probably include like some kind of physical or other type in with the poison.
People like mental. So in the mental, you would see flashes of the betrayal, and you would experience that anguish.
So the question is then: is the plus potentially others? Is that precision, or is it something more like
it could be precision?
You're like frightened or something like that, or otherwise distressed by these memories that come upon you.
I could see that too. So let's do that a little bit. So, based on what some people were saying in chat, I think we can build that. So, normally, if we did the complex attack bonus of plus 17, we would be looking at about 18 damage. Mm-hmm. So, if we say that this,
so we have Treacherous Shiv,
which is plus 17 to hit. It's melee. Melee Treacherous Shiv, plus 17. Oh yeah, this will also say on the routine, the betrayal does not apply multiple attack penalty to these attacks. Mm-hmm. But it splits up. It can never attack the same person twice. Yes. So Treacherous Shiv, we don't even have to put agile or finesse or anything, even though theoretically shivs would be. Mm-hmm. And so that's plus 17 to hit. Damage will be so normally it would be about 18, but let's make it lower than that. So, also, just flat out, if they're not flat-footed, it doesn't attack them.
Yeah.
So, if you critically succeed,
it'll leave you alone.
It will actually not attack you, because it just how, the Wanderer didn't attack them until the Wanderer had the advantage. The Wanderer part of the story is too craven to attack people without having the advantage from that. So that is one other way that it's weaker. So if we say that it is I'm
also thinking about the feeling of shivs are more
feels
like
D4s.
Yeah, exactly. Not only are they really pointy, but it's also the damage dice of daggers.
So we're gonna say it does 44 mental, and then plus 2d6 precision to flat-footed creatures.
Isn't everyone going to be flat-footed except for at all times? Yes.
Yes. That's true.
But if someone had a way to be immune to...
Yes.
Then it wouldn't attack them. Well, okay. Actually, technically, if there may be someone who they stabbed and then woke up and then continue to attack. Is it possible? Is it possible for it to ever attack someone who's not flat-footed / off guard?
That's a good question. Also, flat-footed and off guard, I realize, is also a relative condition. You can be flat-footed to something, but not to other things. So
yeah. So we could also
I will say a creature who isn't asleep from a critical failure, and who was affected by false sense of security. Yeah. So that also means being flat-footed due to some other reason, like being tripped, does not get you to be attacked by this. Even if there's an allied creature that can trip you.
That makes sense.
If this haunt didn't fool you with false sense of security, it will never attack that person.
But again, it cannot attack someone who isn't flat-footed /
No, now it can. Now it can. because it could attack a rogue who failed the saving throw or succeeded the saving throw, but that who is actually not off guard because of their rogue
because
ability.
of their rogue abilities. Yes. Okay. So the precision damage then is considered to be like so likely that it's part of their base damage in the calculation.
Exactly. That's why I put it in there because it's like 90%,
Yeah.
and then you just get a. So I'm just gonna say like treacherous attack. The
treacherous shiv.
Betrayals, treacherous shiv deals 2d6 additional precision damage, and then we'll put plus treacherous attack.
Yes.
To flat-footed / off-guard creatures, and on a critical hit, they're frightened to. Yep. And then on a regular hit, it doesn't do anything. So that gets the frightened in there, yeah. Yes. So that's got the frightened in there. We've got every idea from chat.
Yeah, and if you're talking about like precision, maybe only on the critical failure, that would definitely be like a good thought if precision wasn't already accounted for, and like by making the base damage be lower that wasn't the precision type.
Yes.
Then that could be another way to go about it for sure.
But now, even with the 2d6 additional damage, is actually 1 point of damage below average. Especially due to the fact that it only attacks...
The question is, how does precision mental damage work?
Oh, well...
It cuts deeply into the right parts of your psyche.
It cuts into exactly the weak point of your mind. That one place where, it seems like this person's unflappable, but if you needle them in just the right place, that's what would break them.
Yes.
Their weakest, most vulnerable point. Honestly, actually, this should probably do more damage now that I'm thinking about it, because of the fact that some complex hazards can like attack the same thing multiple times, or you wouldn't become immune to it. So instead of 4d4 mental plus treacherous attack, also it has no flat damage, so it's very
you should give
random.
it a flat.
Let's make it 3d4 plus like 4.
Yeah.
So it's just slightly more.
That makes total sense.
So now at least it'll do 7 instead of having 4 as its minimum.
Yeah.
And at most it'll do 16, which is already the most it could have done before.
It looks like there's a question or comment here.
Alright, so Rico says it's really weird to think about creatures with immunity to precision, though, because they're not really tied to mental stuff at all. Yeah, precision is kind of weird on mental damage. I will readily admit that. Precision mental damage. Let's put it this way. Actually, given that the like oozes are that have no mind or immune to it, we'll also say so like precision damage could definitely be fire damage. Can precision damage be mental damage? Is that even cromulent?
Yeah. So another thing
we can just say it's 2d6 additional mental damage.
Yeah.
Instead of saying it's precision, because I'm realizing that any time that we would use a rule around precision damage,
then it wouldn't necessarily
actually be useful.
So it's acting kind of like that. Yeah, exactly. It's acting kind of like that, but it's more just like they hit you harder. It's acting kind of like precision in that it's hitting you because you're flat-footed or off guard. But like if the idea is that you're paying more attention, then it can't hit you quite as hard. So you're sort of dodging somewhat out of the way of the shiv attack. I think that makes more sense.
That's right. So, or it's just that like it's more traumatic for you.
Yeah, and then Rico again be like, I don't have organs, therefore, yeah, no. You guys make excellent points about
how... It's more traumatic for you if you're flat-footed, even if you're an ooze. It's still more traumatic.
If you have to be a thinking oozer, you're...
Yes, I'm talking about a thinking ooze.
Yes. That's true.
I mean, Linda, I'm assuming you're thinking, but I don't know whether or not you're an ooze.
All right.
Okay, so I think we have figured out this hazard based on... wait, one more thing. We need to figure out how it resets.
We also need to know what skills are used to disable it and which specific DCs.
Yeah. We didn't do the disable. We kind of did part of it. So let's talk about reset, and then we can do disable. So I have a feeling that this resets like every day, because the idea is like every night it's ready for another traveler to betray them. So I would say it resets at nightfall.
Yes.
The haunt deactivates and resets It deactivates when there are no creatures within. Oh yeah, we should say like within 1,000 feet or something like that.
Yeah.
Within 1,000 feet, and resets at the next nightfall.
So if you run far enough away from the building.
Yes, you run for quite a while.
So wait, this means that it can chase you for 1,000 feet, stabbing you.
Yes.
I got that image.
It sure can.
You're just like, why is it still stabbing me?
It can stab anybody within 1,000 feet of the building, because I'm thinking of that as like the property line.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it won't cross the property line that they like the little way markers that the farm family had like built.
Yes.
For themselves. So that's why I wanted to pick a higher number for that. Let's see what people in chat think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've swapped out precision damage already to just additional damage for sure.
So it's more mental damage now.
Yeah, it's just more mental damage because it's a mental attack with the treacherous attack ability. So let's think about how to disarm this. We want to give it, since it's a complex hazard, it's probably going to take multiple successes based on how many people are in the family.
Mm-hmm.
So,
when you disable is it 3 checks and each time you succeed at one, you get rid of one of the shivs that can attack people?
I think so. I think that,
that's pretty standard.
That actually may suggest that this one has maybe 4 actions, and so it could attack up to 4 people.
Yeah.
And that there's 4 family members, so each success makes one of the family members that is powering the haunt, like, stop their anguish temporarily.
So are you thinking you need 4 checks to completely get rid of it then?
I think you need 4 checks to completely get rid of it, but also just, like, flat out if one of your characters succeeded against the check at the beginning, or, like, critically succeeded, then they're just not going to be hit by it.
Yes, and they could, but they're still going to chase the rest of them to the edge of the property line.
Yes, that's correct. So, we're going to say that its disable is, so put some sample skills for disabling in the chat. Right away, we can think of certain things such as religion to give them, like, a last rites, potentially, like, diplomacy to help calm them down.
I like farming lore to relate to them and how that big
farming
lore
to relate to the fact that you are a farmer and you understand their pain. So I would say something like, it could be like diplomacy DC 25
is hard.
Religion DC 21, farming lore DC 19.
Oh yeah, occultism is solid too.
Occultism is always a good choice.
Let's throw occultism in there.
Always a good choice for certain haunts. For this, like, sometimes you have to decide, is it religion or occultism or both? This one felt more religion-y to me because I feel like these farmers would relate well to a cleric talking to them compared to an occultist.
So maybe occultism in there, but it's a little harder.
Let's put occultism up with diplomacy so that it's an option, but that religion is better. What about murder hobo lore? That seems super relevant, says Rico. Warfare lore. Kojo says deception, since the family was betrayed. So we could do so the question is, do we stop the haunt by calming them down? Or do we stop the haunt by being awful to them in the same way that they're doing things? Because sometimes it makes sense, that second one, even if you were like, Mark, that sounds like one of them was obviously better than the other. Not really. One of Linda's funniest haunts that she made was one that is like the ghost uncles from Casper that are just constantly yelling and screaming and trying to spook you. And the only way you can get them to stop that's easy is to intimidation, to do a better scare. And then they're like, they respect that. They're like, oh yeah, you did it. Your loud shriek was way better than ours. We'll just stop it. You did it. You win. So sometimes you can have a, like, I will out horrible this haunt. So, with the ones we have, like diplomacy, occultism, and religion, farming lore, are more like quell the restless spirit.
Oh, I see. Like deception to, like, try to understand,
to relate to them and calm them down. Like, if you honestly wanted to relate to them and calm them down, it's probably diplomacy. Whereas if you're lying to calm them down, which is possible. I could also see, like, some of these are, like, suggested skills to use, so I could see a GM being like, if someone's like, I want to use my deception, the GM would be like, well, are you like telling the truth? And they're like, no, I'm lying. I totally think these guys deserved it, but I know that if I say that, they're gonna be upset. Then if I was the GM, I'd probably let you do it, but make it harder because of the fact that they were already betrayed by someone who did this to them before.
I also saw mention of society.
Society. And Rexfield says the family would want peace. Society to be like understanding the social dynamics of the situation. I could see it. I feel like we have a lot of skills here now compared to a normal complex hazard, so we'd want to cut one of the other ones for society if we did that.
I think occultism fits even better than society.
I think that diplomacy, occultism, religion, and farming law are pretty strong. Although I could see society being like the easier version of the farming lore, but on the other hand, at that point, I think any of the other ones that we have could work. But let's put it up to chat.
Because we have, at this point, we have charisma, intelligence, and wisdom.
Vote for one not to keep. I'm going to put like asterisks around not.
Yes, indeed.
So we're going to not keep one of these skills. So the one that you vote is the one we're not using.
Diplomacy, society, occultism, religion, and farming lore.
Yes. So put a number into chat that you do not want us to have as a disabled. Normally, a lot of hazards have 2, but a complex haunt makes sense to have 3. We have 4. We're just special. One of them is a weird lore. All right. It looks like everybody thinks it's society. That's what we thought too. So I've already not put society.
Yeah,
in.
society feels like that thing that a player could ask about, and as a GM, I'd be like, yeah,
I might be like, yeah, I'll let you do it instead of farming lore, but the DC is gonna be much harder. But I wouldn't put it on the suggested list, probably.
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. So thanks for remembering that, Linda. We almost forgot, or I almost forgot to do that. Let me look on this list of things. It's complex. We know what it is. It's a haunt.
Generally, there's a description at the top that talks about like what does it look like, or what is it. But we've kind of talked about that already.
Yeah, we talked about that, but it's like a ghostly farming family of 4 forces you to relive their brutal betrayal and stabbing by a guest they invited into their home.
Yes. And if this were like for publication, then there would need to be some additional language about how, like, formal language about how each time that you disable something, that it removes one of the actions,
yes,
etc.
It would say that. And we probably should put that anyway, in the disable line, so it would just be like, it would be like
4 successes required to disable.
In the disable,
each.
It would be like 4 successes required to fully disable the haunt.
Each success removes one action.
Each success removes one action from the betrayal's routine.
And then in things it would say 4 actions and then be like for each action. I can clean this up before I send it.
Alright, I've saved it. We did it. We made it. Okay, everyone.
Oh, a question.
Garland has a question. Let me ask you a question. Here's the thing about haunts I feel like I don't grok. How do I present them to the players in a way they recognize as a skill encounter rather than a combat one? That's a good question, especially when it's a complex haunt like this one. So I would say that if you want to make sure your players get the sense that it's more of a haunting rather than a creature, it depends on your GMing style. One way to do it is to present it as like weird stylized glimpses of things. Try to make it so abstract that it's clear that it's not creatures. Especially this has 4 figures which may look creature-like, but you can also go away from your usual routine. If you always use a battle map for combat, maybe you didn't use a battle map for this because by the time they get 1,000 feet away, you can just kind of count the number of rounds they were running.
You can also, like, haunts can be less direct and consistent with, like, they can have, a knife that it appears out of nowhere and stabs someone and then disappears. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is not like a normal creature that I know how to target.
You can say you see these 4 farmer spirits that blink into existence and then they disappear and there's this horrible sound, but that they don't feel like they're even as substantial as a ghost, but that they're mere echoes or something like that. You can try to describe it in character. If that doesn't work with your group because they don't get those hints and they'll be like, oh, they must be using greater invisibility, the 4th level, 4th rank heightened invisibility, we cast glitter dust on that spot. And you're like, that's not what I was trying to hint. If they need more of a bludgeon, you can even just flat out
tell them, like, this is
tell them, like, find the person who's most likely to know about haunts, such as the cleric or the thaumaturge, and saying, like, you're
like,
really
getting the feeling this place is haunted.
Brother Spangler.
Yeah.
Your knowledge of ghost busting has told you that those 4 images that appeared and disappeared felt less like they were like ghosts that could disappear, like a poltergeist, which is a type of ghost that can disappear, but more like that this may be some kind of phenomenon, like a haunt, as opposed to a haunted creature. So you could
some sort of phenomenon like a haunt or like an illusion or some other strange thing that isn't.
You could just give them that information directly. It depends on you as the GM and your group and your social contract. Because some groups, they would love that you told them that. And they'd be like, thank you. This is how I can engage with this. For some groups, they'd be like, you've learned my immersion by telling me that it was a haunt, most likely. Because I may be Brother Spangler the Ghostbuster, but in fact, I have not rolled a recall knowledge check yet, so I don't know anything.
Well, I mean, to be a little less parodical about this person, like, there are creature ghosts. I thought it was a creature ghost and not this kind of thing.
You're just giving me metagame information, GM. So, like, it depends on your group. And there are a lot of different puzzles.
So it looks like from Rex Felix in chat that the idea they were going for is more of like a simple off-road hazard that's just like a boom type thing and an environment.
So the question is there a time to do a simple off-road hazard? Because this hazard is one that you can encounter on a hex grid.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to do like a really quick simple hazard.
I mean, it's easy enough to do a really quick simple hazard if Linda wants to. So it's currently 8:53. We're going to speed run a simple hazard, and the way we're going to speed run this is that chat is not going to get to say almost anything at all. Here's what you get to do, chat. Type, this is the lightning round for Linda and me. So I want you to pick a level and a level and like some kind of like weird elemental ingredient, like earth if it could be a rock slide, or it can be one of the Eldamon elements, so lightning or electricity if it can be like a lightning trap, like in Final Fantasy X, lightning planes, or water if it could be like a water flood. So just put any kind of weird element and a level. So 6 wood. There we go. So just everyone put those in chat, and we will based on that, we will do a lightning round of a hazard. Actually, let's make sure it's 6 because Rex Fearless literally wants to use it, but other people can put in other elements if you want it to not be wood.
Well, someone else wants wood. So.
Okay, Kojo wants Rex Fearless to get the one that they want. So we're gonna do it. It's a level 6 simple hazard based on wood. Okay.
So is this like something that someone rigged up using a tree?
I think it's an environmental hazard and not a trap, because we said that a hex-based hazard is probably more likely to be an environmental one and not a trap.
Oh, yeah. So is this like a particular plant that is grown in a ground cover in a way that's seriously an issue?
I think that this is going to be some kind... It's level 6, so it's not even just basic plants. Some kind of weird, magical, problematic plant hazard.
Yeah.
Kind of like, like... yellow mold and all those
so
other
there's
kinds
a
of
massive
things, but
overgrowth of maybe it's infused with primal energy and it's just gone completely out of control.
So I'm gonna call this like the vampire rosebush trap.
Yes.
And it is a plant that wants to drink your blood. It's gonna be a simple level 6 environmental hazard. Okay, so the deal with the vampire rosebush is like the other one. It's extremely difficult to locate because it just looks like a bush.
Yes, and you don't know that it's that.
And it's a DC 28. However, if you actually know that it's a vampire rosebush, it's incredibly easy to disable it using using nature
or survival, maybe.
Or survival, yes. So it's almost as easy using survival, DC 21, and it's even easier using nature because you can use some very obscure nature. I mean, not even that obscure nature knowledge. It's like anybody knows if it's a vampire.
So you're saying bush, but maybe it should be more like a grass or something that you would step on, like a ground cover. Because like you're probably not going to walk into a bush necessarily. I do like the rose idea though.
So I think that the idea is that the bush has like these thorns that go down into the ground and they'll come up and attack you.
Oh yeah.
Even if you don't even go up to it, which is another one of the reasons that it's hard to spot it.
Yes, that makes sense.
Those are the roots, and the roots are thorned, and they drink blood and feed it to the rose bush.
Since it's a simple hazard, it has a reaction trigger, and that's what it does. So creature.
That's correct. So basically, it's gonna have defenses because theoretically you could destroy the bush that's on the surface.
Yes.
However, it's gonna be very difficult to realize in advance and actually go against these defenses, but that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So
it probably doesn't have that much hardness because of bush.
It's a bush, so it can possibly like move those roots up and like block things. So it may not have the lowest AC for its level because these are the ACs even that a completely inanimate trap can have, and this is actually able to move itself a little bit. So it's going to be AC 24.
And it's going to have reflex and fortitude.
Reflex and fortitude. So I think its fortitude is going to be
above
really high because
reflex,
of the fact that it drinks people's blood.
But it wouldn't have a will save.
That is a reflex, and it will not have a will save.
And it will have. It probably doesn't have. It probably has a little bit of hardness because wood generally may have a little bit, but not much.
It'll be on the level 6 hardness, which is always extremely high. But actually, let's put it below the minimum and then just give it like
more hit points. Yeah.
So it's gonna have 10, which is quite high for a rosebush, but is low for a hazard.
And then you're just like, why?
And then its hit points would normally be 54 to 58. We're gonna actually make it 50, which is lower than that. However, it also is going to have regeneration,
yes,
10 parentheses. So it's called the vampire rosebush, but I'm assuming that it gets because it's a simple hazard, not a complex, so it just goes.
Well, I was thinking about it.
I'm assuming that if it's as long as it has enough food, it regenerates, and that you're not going to actually starve it of blood during when you're shooting it from a distance.
That's correct. You certainly wouldn't.
But it probably has something it's weak to, and it's probably not holy because even though it's called the vampire rosebush, it's not like actually an undead. So it could be fire.
Yeah.
That is a kind of a common thing.
That makes perfect sense. So regeneration bypassed by fire.
Bypassed
then it's got its basic reaction.
Yes, and that's the only way that it attacks you is its basic reaction, because if that doesn't kill you, it just stops. I mean, it got the blood it needed.
So basically, yeah. So I'm guessing what it does is it stabs you, and then the idea is that you bleed on the ground and it drinks the blood.
Yes.
For later, yes.
And it also causes, obviously, persistent
bleed damage to you, yes, because that's causing you to bleed on the ground.
So, here's what it's going to do.
Thirsty Thorns?
Yes, so it's going to routine is,
it's not a routine, it's a reaction.
Oh, right, it's not it's a reaction. So it's called Thirsty Thorns. I wrote routine. Reaction. All right. The vampire rosebush makes attack rolls against all creatures within 60 feet. Oh, wait, what we need the trigger.
Yes.
Trigger is at least
3 creatures, maybe?
3 or no. So at least 2 creatures
of size small or larger
are within 60 feet of the vampire.
Because on a lot of these ones, you want to have a trigger that makes people come in.
Any creature of tiny or larger
touches the bush.
within 60 feet touches or attacks the bush.
Yeah.
And because it's kind of be like, oh crap, they're attacking me. Let's get some blood for my make sure my regeneration, which could last for a few hours, will not wear off.
Yes.
So then, the effect: the vampire rosebush attacks against all creatures within 60 feet. It's gonna have the simple attack bonus with a plus 20 attack bonus. Dealing. So 36 is the simple damage here, but
we're gonna need some damage to be persistent.
We're gonna need some of it to be persistent bleed.
Yeah.
That's correct. So we're gonna cut it down to let's cut it down to 4d6 plus 14, which is 28.
And that gives us enough space.
Damage, and then we can do. Given it's a simple hazard that if it's not combined with another creature, and it probably does want to live synergistically with other creatures, so 2d6 persistent. Normally, persistent is prorated to be worth like at least about as much as a hit. If it's a creature that can hit multiple times, it may be worse than pure damage. Here, given that this may be the only thing that you fight, persistent could be worth less. However, it really wants you to bleed. So, so we can just say, and vampire rose bleed. And then vampire rose bleed says,
it's going to be harder to get rid of.
Creature hit, yes, by a, yes, that's correct. And we could say, or double damage on a critical hit. Hit by a vampire rose, or hit by thirsty thorns.
Yes.
Thorns takes 2d6 persistent bleed damage.
And the flat check to remove the damage.
And the flat check to remove the damage, I mean, usually this is out of combat anyway, is DC 20 instead of 15. Or DC 10 instead of
automatic.
Or no, DC 15 instead of 10. DC 10 for especially effective insistence.
Yes. Presumably, if you heal up to full, you still get rid of it, as usual for bleed.
And it's not
then you're not reeling at that point.
Yeah, it's not like supernatural devil things, so it doesn't block healing spells or anything like that. It just has an anticoagulant in it, like that.
Legit.
This persistent damage is doubled on a critical hit.
Yep.
Because we put it in a special ability instead of at the top, it would be ambiguous whether it was doubled.
Absolutely.
So we put that in there.
So let's pop back to chat, see if folks had any thoughts on this while we were doing it.
This is what we've done here. It is it blood drains. It self-heals, but it's stored up enough blood that we're just going to assume that it has the ability to heal. The reason why we do this is because since we were asked by Restphyllis for a simple hazard, that means once it's popped its blood drain, it's not fighting you anymore. It doesn't matter whether it can self-heal. The only matters if it can self-heal if you attack it in advance. And so therefore, for the self-healing to be something interesting that matters, it needs to be able to store the blood from its previous victims and just self-heal whether it attacked you recently or not. Because otherwise, it would be chicken and egg, where it could only heal after it's too late for it to matter if it heals.
So, like, the complex version of this then would deal less damage, but then be continually regenerating.
And it would potentially get other benefits from the blood.
Yes.
Here, it's a simple hazard that probably is combined with some kind of creature that knows that this is going to happen and that scavenges for some of the blood, like mosquitoes or something.
Yes.
That'd be like, ooh, well, now this blood is here. It's going to drop down into the roots, but we can get some of it first before it goes down there.
Talk about a bad time. Like, you're just trying to adventure, and then, like, suddenly you get stabbed, and then a swarm of mosquitoes by the plants from underground,
there we go.
And then a swarm of mosquitoes comes down.
So we created this in 10 minutes.
All right.
All right. So let's say goodbye to YouTube.
Indeed.
And continue the rest of our show. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.